to come in. We are talking with Cameron Terry, who is the artistic director, founder, and choreographer, because, you know, one of those is not enough. He has to do it all. And I'm so thankful that you're here today. You're It's okay.
Thank you.
All right, so first off, for those who aren't yet familiar with your work, which I'm sure that they will be, because I feel like, how old are you again? You're like 24?
Yes.
Okay, and the fact that you founded a dance company and a nonprofit, and you just put on a satellite show in Atlanta, like, you have your shit more together than most people.
Yeah, I think that running a dance company, running a business or organization in any art form or any form period requires you to have some business about yourself. I think that the running a business period kind of forces you to be together. So that coupled along with the vision that I have for the organization allows me to get things done. I was also in grad school. Yeah, I finished in May. So the company went on. Thank you. So my dance company, we went on tour to Atlanta in June. But in May, I graduated from NYU with my master's. So I was running a dance company, working, touring, planning a tour, and getting my master's degree.
That's it?
That's it.
No big deal. So when you talk about your clear vision, that's one thing that I've always been struck by, particularly with the performance in Atlanta. Everything from the lighting design, to the costumes, to the photography, to the videos, it was fully conceptualized, which is very hard to do and have like a coherent theme and voice throughout your work, and you can see it. Like now, anytime I see your work, it's like instantly recognizable. I don't even need to look at the name at the bottom of the image,
Well, what she's talking about, so I don't think we name dropped the company, but I run a dance company called Shades Dance Theater. It's SHADES Dance Theater. You can find us on all social media platforms that way. So she's talking about the tour that we did to Atlanta in June, but the reality of it, when you talk about the vision of that dance company or the work, it started a year in advance. So I announced the tour internally with our staff and board in November of really 2021. And then by the spring of 22, I had casted the work. So I kind of knew where we were going. And we speak to our lighting designer. Her name is Lydia Brinkman. She's actually Brooklyn-based. We flew her down. She's fantastic. So what I like about her work is the fact that she is an artist in her own right. So I gave her the work and she was able to light it in her own way. But it's really about being intentional and pure about what I want to see on stage and being an advocate of that from execution to production to the actual performance. It's quite difficult and I was quite exhausted.
I really don't know how you handled it all in terms of did you have an assistant to help you with the managerial aspect? I know you mentioned that you have a social media person, right?
Yeah, so we have a social media person. We have a social media manager and she is fantastic. Her name is Sarah. But I had my good friend, he is my rehearsal assistant, my rehearsal director. So he came into play when we got into the theater. But the majority of it was really me and having a good team. So the team kind of came together once we got into the theater. But other than that, it was myself and the team being myself, the lighting designer, the sound engineer, the assistant designer, the stage manager, all of that. But for a majority, it was myself, pulling the strings and executing it to the very end. I was running around until the curtain went up. But at a certain point, you trust the people to do their job, and you just have to let it go. So once the curtain went up and I had to sit down, there was nothing I could do.
You gotta say fuck it.
Yeah, honestly. But that comes with building a great team. And that's what a lot of great artists do. Everybody's talking about Beyonce's tour. It's Beyonce's teams tour because she has a great team, right? So yes, she's the driving force behind that, but being a creative and director myself, I just know that it really comes down to having really good people on your team because they bring the best out of you. So.
Right. And let me ask you, do you have like a whole Pinterest board like dedicated to, you know, that production? Or like how do you go about drawing from references while still stamping your own voice on it?
Yeah, so the premiere that we did in Atlanta was called Love, Candice, and Euphoria. And what I do when I'm working on a concept for a dance show in particular, it's like a seed. It's really like it's like a seed. It's like and it blooms into a flower. So when I'm talking about Love, Fantasy, and Euphoria, that work was called Love Stories in the beginning. Then it grew into Love, Fantasy, and Euphoria. So it was.
How did it grow? Like what? It's interesting how when you have an idea, then when you start executing, it kind of takes like a different shape. And you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
I think that as artists, and that's what I tell young choreographers and artists all the time, is that you have to be okay with the idea evolving. So I work in the medium of dance. So if you are choreographing a duet or choreographing a group piece and 2 people drop out, you have to be okay with that. The show can't stop because you really want it to be 5 people. If it's a trio, if it's a duet, then you just have to roll with it. Same thing with my choreography and my concept. So Love Stories, I kind of knew that I wanted it to be about love, and we were dancing to Beyonce and Marvin Gaye and Donny Hathaway. Like those are the artists that I chose to dance to choreograph to for that particular show. But as the works began to flush out and as I began to pull more material, Love Stories wasn't enough. So we ended the show with Euphoria, but Euphoria, we danced to Donna Summer's Love to Love You Baby with Beyonce with the mix. That was the first song that I found for that particular show, but it closed the show, right? So you just have to be open to letting it grow. So I always have a nugget or a seed that happens maybe 2 years prior. So I had been experimenting with Love Stories maybe in 2019, but it didn't premiere until 2023. The show that I'm working on for 2025, I have.
Can you tell the name?
Sure, I can tell the name. So the show for 2025 is called Omega's Reign. And Omega's Reign, I got the idea, the nugget for that in 2021. So they come to me, I store them, and then I let them grow, and then they bloom. But that's the idea when it comes down to art. You just have to let it, happen. Like Beyonce, she was working on Renaissance in 2020, so.
That's why when everyone's like, where are the visuals? I'm like, go on tour.
Right, exactly.
Which makes it even harder because doing it live, having to account for all the differences in sound, like for instance, like both Diana and Kendrick kind of got, during the LA show because their mics weren't working, and everyone's like, but, up until this point, she was the only sound that they were focused on.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's the thing about production, you realize that things take time, I was in production, we were in Atlanta for our premiere of our tour, and it was like, something that you think is so simple, like this light shining in my face right now, would take 45 minutes to get it set. It's like it takes 45 minutes for us to put this light on me, yes. Yes, things take time, so, but it all has to grow and evolve, and I think that's what artists we struggle with is the time that it takes because we feel like we have to do everything immediately. But you also have to know how to kind of flip the script and finesse as well. So that way
it needs an incubation period.
It needs an incubation period, but you don't want to burn yourself out. So
how do you manage that? Because a lot of the creatives that I've spoken to, they talk about the fact where it's like things come in waves, and they almost feel like this sense of urgency, like, oh, I have to push myself to do this now because if I don't, this opportunity is going to go away.
Yeah, I think that's about your internal mechanism, so for example, I wanted to do the 2025 show next year, but then I realized that I just didn't have the bandwidth to pull off another premiere. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to go on tour. We actually are going on tour next year back to Atlanta, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to tour. It just means that I can't tour that particular work because it's not ready. You really realize the beauty and the time that it takes to pull something off. But the logistics of it all, not just being the art.
It's a nightmare.
But it slows you down. For example, I know that I want this particular opening, or I know that I want this particular look lighting-wise. For example, I want to use a particular light, right? I gotta outsource that light. I gotta figure out what it is, how it works, and can I even have it in the space. If I want to use dry ice, I gotta figure out, okay, well, what are the parameters with dry ice fall on stage? Do the theaters allow that? Do I need a
I've
permit?
never thought about that.
So the logistics slow you down. One of the things that I talk about when I start my process or when I started my tour was what are the challenges? So I have a meeting this week. I think it's coming up with a lighting designer about our 2025 show. I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. What are the challenges? What am I not anticipating?
What am I missing?
What am I missing? So that way, it's not impossible, you just gotta figure it out. So I think that when you know what the challenges are, that creates that time where it's like, I had this idea in 2021, but it's not happening in 2025 because you need the time to meet with the professionals outside of your field to say, hey, what you're missing is you need a permit for that and it takes 30 days. Oh, you need to have the budget for a lighting designer and somebody to run the dry ice and somebody to order the dry ice and so all the logistics of it all humbles you very quickly. So you have the dream.
Very true.
Yeah, you have the dream, but the logistics of planning the art settles you very, very quickly because there's a lot that goes into it.
Right. And the one thing that I wanted to ask you in terms of the fact that you work with dancers from like different dance companies, I always presumed that if somebody was like part of a dance company, that it was like an exclusive agreement and that they couldn't do any outside projects. So how did you navigate that? Because you had several dancers from like Dance Theater of Harlem, right?
I did. So it's a tricky situation because it did used to be very exclusive and you belong to an organization, but as the times change, there's opportunities for other dancers to collaborate with other dance companies. But it's always a tricky navigation because you kind of want to give credit, you got to credit a certain way, and you got to say, partnered with or for,
sponsored by,
or special things. So it's all about the language. Everything is, the arts. No matter how whether you visual art, performing arts, music, lighting, it is a business. No matter what people say, it is a business. It's about the language. It's about that paper.
It's so true.
It is a business.
Let me ask you, this might be a little controversial, but do you feel like that's what compelled you to get further your education and degree because of the access of the network, the alumni network and things like that? Or do you think that you could be at the state that you are right now with your company and with your work had you not gone the academic route?
No. So my master's degree from NYU cost me $1 million.
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately $2 million and counting. But it was worth every single penny. Having that degree.
And not a lot of people say that.
I think it was worth it because I went into my program knowing exactly what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of it. So my professor was the CFO at Ailey. My professor was the VP of American Express. I interned at American Ballet Theater.
No big deal.
But the reality of it is you're paying them money to have access to those people. So now I'm graduating. It's like, hey, don't you want to give money to my company?
You gave me an A.
Yeah, don't you want to get a tax write-off? Don't you want to sit on my board? Don't you want to help me figure out this deficit? So having that access to those people was worth it. Also having the knowledge, I wouldn't be able to grow my company in the way that I did if I didn't have that knowledge. But it is a business, and I think that it takes everybody a minute to understand that it has to run, and while it is pretty and it's shiny and it is arts and it's a nonprofit, it has to run. It is a business. But I think that my master's degree really helped me propel the company forward in a different way. So yeah.
That's so interesting. So in terms of, we talk about gatekeeping in the arts, and I know that, a lot of people are now realizing that when they buy a ticket for a small dance company, that dollar almost has more of an impact than it does if you go to see the New York Philharmonic or something like that. So for you, how do you navigate, what are the reasons you decided to do nonprofit versus, in addition to a dance company, in conjunction with each other? Because for a lot of people, they think it has to be one or the other and not both.
Well, the nonprofit model, I mean, starting a dance company, to start a dance company and not a studio or a school, the nonprofit model is almost required. You know, when you look at the big dance company, Alvin Ailey, New York City Ballet, they're all nonprofits. They're not LLCs. Nobody owns them. You know, so when you look at the business model and how to be successful and sustainable, you see that the DNA is all the same. The structure, they have a board, they have an artistic director, they have a CEO, they have donors. You know, that is the skeleton that you have to work with. That is the beast.
Do you think that there's any opportunity for that structure to change and not be as, you know, exclusionary? Because I know that we had briefly spoken about like just how much money it costs to even set up a nonprofit and like, you know, find a board and everything like that. That's like almost another job in and of itself.
It is. I mean, I think the nonprofit business model is weak, period.
I have a book called The Revolution Will Not Be Funded.
You know, I think the nonprofit business model is weak, period, just because of its structure. You know, you have a board and they give money, they give a lot of money to the organization, and they are responsible for the governance and overseeing, but then you have an artistic director, you have a director of development, you have a CEO, and then the struggle becomes, well, who has the agency and the influence in the organization? Is it the board or is it the CEO?
How do you figure that out? Like, do you just like do a scan of the stage?
You figure it out and then you realize what type of board that you want to be. So in my situation, I'm a little bit different because I'm the founder. And I always start my introductions with the founder. Because oftentimes as your organization grows and it builds and the nonprofit grows, people get rid of the founder. They kind of call you something else. They call you the artistic director, they call you by your other titles, but I think when you hone in on being the founder, it makes people realize that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So you have to step into your power immediately, and I think that's what young nonprofit leaders don't do, is you have to step into your power.
How do you do that though? Like if you're wrestling with self-doubt, you know? Like
you can't, you know, you can't. Right. So when you start a nonprofit organization, you start a dance company, in my instance, you have to be so locked in on your vision. You have to have the abracadabra, the magic, because if you waver, you're not going to make it. Because there's so many other things around you that are not found in it, right? So you're going to be responsible for raising the money. You have the magic, you have the inspiration. It's going to be you that have to get people to open up those checkbooks. It will be other people that are on, but in the beginning, it will be you. So you have to step into your power immediately, and that doesn't mean that you be arrogant, but you have to figure out, I'm steering this ship. It is me, I'm leading it. And though you have a board of directors, they're there to support you in that vision. But it is challenging, and you have to figure out who has the agency and the influence. In my case, I'm lucky enough to have the agency and the influence because I'm the founder. Other organizations don't have that. So you really have to be locked in with your board or your board chair, president of your board, to get things over the finish line. But it is very political. But you have to be locked in. If you are not sure if you have the wherewithal to start a nonprofit,
it's not for you.
I think you should wait because it's too hard. And when you look in the mirror and things are telling you that you're going to fail, you have to decide that it's not a possibility for you. And that takes a lot of self-determination in your life, along with being a person, having a family, and having a relationship, and all of those things. It's hard. It's not what people think at all.
And talking about relationships, you have such a beautiful one, like with your dancers. You know, I just see all of this like cross-posting love, and you know, it's not just a matter of you respecting these dancers. It's like I can see that you respect these people as well. And how did you find this amazing group?
I mean, the dancers, like, you know, they're my friends and they're my babies. They really are, because you're the choreographer, but you're the artistic director. You feel responsible for that group. You're taking them on tour. You want to make sure that you are supporting them and loving them because, you know, oftentimes you are their boss, and that is a difficult place to be.
Yeah, how do you balance the two?
I try not to balance them. I try to lead with love and friendship, but there are times where I had to be the artistic director, and it sucked really, really bad. I didn't like it because somebody has to lead, and oftentimes being about the business and about the work and being a friend doesn't always mix. Sometimes I have to tear it to your ass because we have to get this done tomorrow. We open tomorrow, and you don't have this stuff, so I can't be your friend about it, right? I gotta get it done, and as a person, that's hard. It's hard to be that my group, this group that went on tour with us, they were from Dance State of Harlem. My best friend, my dance bestie, he got into the company when we moved here together in 2021, and then things happened. I was like, hey, would you want to join this thing that I'm doing? And it worked. But as a choreographer and as a new person, it's a two-way street. You know, what they don't tell you about being an artist and work with collaborators is they have to trust you. They have to trust that your work is good, and they have to be talented. So you can't be out here choreographing any BS. Well, BS to them is art is subjective, right? But there's a two-way street. So there has to be a balance of what you're doing and what they want to do.
Right.
And you have to find that harmony.
Right. And that must be tricky too, because everybody, like obviously, when people enter into a situation, they each have their own objective, but at the same time, it's like you have to figure out a way to get to the same point together, you know, versus just operate individually.
Yeah, talk about arriving at our best selves together.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. I should get that on a t-shirt.
That's what I call the choreographic process. But you start with workshops. You start with really figuring out who they are and how they move and how they get into the same space. But everybody's unified in the mission of what we're trying to accomplish, which is to put on an excellent dance performance. And that means you have to push them in a different way and figure out how they like it, what they respond to, what they don't respond to. So you are, you know, like a parent, you know, in a sense, like, you know, I love my friends, I love them really, but they were my babies. Because you have to get them to produce or to respond in a certain way. And as the leader in the room, it's up to you to kind of figure that out. You know, the fish rots from the head, so you have to be strong.
Was that the fish?
The fish rots from the head.
Okay.
Which means like,
Never heard that.
so they pretty much means it's like if the leadership is not right, then everything else kind of goes to hell. So when you're walking into rehearsal, you kind of have to observe, like, hey, this person is a little weird today. What's going on with their energy? You know, there's a lot of times you have to take a moment to say, hey, you okay? You want to talk about it? I ask one of my friends all the time. I said to him, if something's wrong, would you tell me? He was like, yeah. You know, so you really have to rely on the relationship because there's going to be times where nobody wants to be there, but we still got to get the work done.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what has been the most surprising thing that you've learned throughout this experience that you've had the last couple of years?
I don't know. I think there's been a lot of lessons and they happen so fast. I mean, running the dance company is only 3 years old. We'll be 3 years old in October.
I still can't believe you started it at 21. That's really
I found out on my birthday.
You know, those 21-year-olds just go get drunk. You're like, I'm going to start a dance company that's going to be fabulous.
It went well. Just time, the amount of time that it takes, the amount of money that it takes to run an organization. You know, it takes a lot of money. You know, production was a learning curve because you were leading it from the ground up. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen when you're running a dance board. You know, honestly, I can't really pinpoint one thing.
Like, what did I get myself into?
I mean, I think that you gain the skills that you need. You know, I mean, a lot of people told me not to start a company. A lot of people told me that we weren't going to tour. And that was fine. But
it was like fuel for you.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to be that person that's like, oh, when haters tell me no, but I'm very much a watch this type person. I'm very big on like, you know, it's cool, whole time is hotter than hell. That's very much my style, and I just keep it cute. And you drive it all the way home, even when things are telling you that you're gonna fail. You have to be like, nah, not today. Because you will. There will never be enough money. There will always be an injury.
There'll always be an excuse.
Absolutely.
If you're not dedicated.
Absolutely.
Man, I don't think we can finish off on a better note than that. Do you have anything that you want to plug aside from 2025?
No, you can follow the dance company on Instagram at Shades, SHAPS Dance Theater on Instagram, and we'll be performing.
Do you have a mailing list on your website?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
I think I'm subscribed.
I think you are.
Yeah, I think so.
So you can just follow us and we'll be performing.
Well, thank you so much
Of
for being
course.
here.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what you do next. I was so disappointed I couldn't come to
I have to get you
Atlanta.
some footage.
Yes! I'm still waiting. See, you're like Beyonce. I want the visuals.
Listen. Okay.
Thank you.